Howdy, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I hear you.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, we might as well go ahead and get started. Don't have a ton of updates this week. As usual, if people want to chat about things, we can do that, but I'll give you the brief rundown first. Let's see. Last week's meeting, Beck mentioned the issue with the mesh uploader not preserving the names of objects and suggested we could probably stand to improve the naming scheme for that. There is a JIRA for that now that we've been taking a look at, and so far it turns out it's a little hairier than we thought because it's actually the server that's assigning these names, so it's naming everything object. I'd assumed that we could just change the name that we were requesting and that would fix everything, but it looks like it's a little more complicated than that. But we'll do a little more poking around on that and see how it goes. What else? I've been looking, we're kind of starting the process of looking at performance. This is a recurring topic here. We've been talking about trying to figure out the final numbers for land impact and what complexity limits we're going to have and all that good stuff. So we're trying to kind of get that underway now. And one thing I've been working on there is adding the ability to control the triangle count limit for Animesh objects on a per region basis. So we have a way to do that now, and so at least for internal testing, we'll be doing some tests with different limits to see to see how that affects performance. So one thing I wanted to ask there is, would it be useful for you guys to have a test region that had an increased limit? Are there people who want to test other kinds of objects that they can't currently test now? I know I know Lucia's expressed interest in this before, but I think other folks would find that useful as well. Okay, well we'll look at getting a region like that set up. Still have to push out the latest server update for that to work, but once we do that, we should be able to set up a region and tweak the settings. So we can get at least one region up with a higher limit and let people play around with that. So I'll let you know when we've got something ready there. Um, let's see. So the other thing I've been looking at, Lucy, I think this was something you had filed about a performance issue. That's where you're scrolling in and out, and you get these glitches. That's been kind of interesting. It turns out that that's actually caused by the recalculations of the attachment overrides. Meshes can define joint positions, and so we're doing a kind of an excessive amount of recalculation of that stuff, even at times when nothing has actually changed, and that looks like that's the main place where the performance is getting clobbered. Um, so I think we should be able to fix that by just making the calculations a little bit smarter. Working on that now, but shouldn't be too much longer before we have a fix pushed for that. So I'm hoping that will help with other cases where things are kind of glitchy when you're zooming in and out. I think this has probably been going on for a while. It is going to depend on the model whether it's going to be a significant impact or not. But for at least some geometry, it gets kind of unhappy doing that stuff. Yeah, in the case that it's Animesh, it does it was actually updating the overrides, even the attachment point, joint overrides, even when it wasn't nothing was actually playing on the Animesh object, which is kind of weird. But anyway, so I'm hoping we can get that to behave better. But yeah, even when I was testing this with with that as a non-Animesh, Lucia, if I just had it as an attachment, a regular rigged mesh attachment, I would still see this kind of frame spikes. I don't think they were quite as severe, but if you had the frame timers console up, you could definitely see there was extra stuff going on there. So I'm hoping we can kind of knock those spikes down a bit and get things to be better behaved in general. Let's see. Do I see it now? Pull up the console. Yeah, I do see those. Kind of big spikes when I'm zooming in and out. Yeah. So why that particular model? The only guess I have is that maybe there's more joint positions to find with that model than with some of the others. The overhead from that is going to be tied to how many of the associated meshes have joint positions defined, and so how much work it has to do to sort through all that stuff. But yeah. Anyway, we should have the next project viewer should have an update that addresses that. So once that's ready, we can talk about how it works for everybody. So let's see. I think that's most of what's been going on this week. Let's see. Alexa said she couldn't make it today, so I don't have any update from her. I've talked to Anchor about Bakes on Mesh. He's currently working on some issues around getting the appearance service updates out. That includes a fix for one issue specifically related to Animesh attachments, and it also has the resolution increase. So we're adding a setting for that so that we don't have to have the resolution changes until there's something to apply it to with the mesh bakes. But we will be keeping you posted on all of that stuff. We also have to add some more machines because it does increase the load to have higher resolution. So we're going to need to get some additional hardware, acquired and configured. But it is on the way. The changes are out on the DD now, and we're just working on getting it out on Agni. The LOD drop on Animesh to be changed. That's another issue we need to look at, but it's not directly related to this. It's a separate thing. Yeah, the business with LODs is that currently we're basically treating Animesh objects as if they were avatars. So for purposes of like boosting the LODs, they're being treated as the same, and we just need to dig into that code a little bit to get it to treat them differently. The business of which LOD the Animesh objects get shown at is that's just a viewer's thing. That doesn't actually require changes to the baking service or the server, but it's just some additional logic that needs to be put in there. Yeah, I know the bakes on mesh thing sounds a little fuzzy before we have anything to anything specific to talk about. The basic idea there is that we want to have a way to take advantage of the kinds of baking that we do now for system avatars, but be able to apply that to rigged mesh avatars as well. So that should make it easier to customize your avatar. You've got a no mod object and you want to stick a tattoo layer in there or something like that. You can do that. It gives you more control over the texturing of the things that you're wearing.
Is it just rigged?
Yeah. System.
Just rigged meshes, not all meshes?
Would when would you want to apply it to something other than rigged meshes?
Well, just about anything. Like you could add dirt to things, you could add moss to things, and things like that. Where people could have a choice to turn that on or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that. The this is only for initially this is only for things that are actually on the avatar, right? You have to know, whose bakes are getting applied. So meshes that are attached to the avatar, it kind of makes sense to do something like that. Would it make sense for like static mesh avatars as well? I guess you could have something like you've got mesh eyeballs or something that you want to apply the baked eye texture to, right? So it probably, I guess it makes sense to say that it would apply to, attached meshes, rather than just to attached rig meshes.
Veer, I think, well, anyways, for me, the confusion is the term bake, because a lot of mesh creators, I think, when they hear the term bake, they think of, textures in the 3D rendering program.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think maybe there might be a little bit of confusion. I'm not sure. That's where I was a little bit confused, is where are these textures going to be applied to, in the 3D program or in actual world? So are you talking about adding more different layers to the appearance editor?
No, that's not really what we're talking about for this project. I know the terminology can get kind of confusing because just in different things. I guess obviously mesh is one of those. Bakes is probably another one. Yeah, when I'm talking about bakes, I mean the appearance service that we have for your system avatar. So, for example, if you're wearing just a stock avatar with no meshes, and you get a shirt or a jacket for that, or you change your you change your skin settings in the editor, those things, those all result in an update to the texture that gets displayed on your avatar. And there's a service that computes the final texture that gets displayed. So it basically does this compositing process where it figures out how your shirt goes over your body and how your eyelash settings get applied to your eyelashes and all that stuff. and this is non-mesh avatars, the old school avatars that we had before mesh was even a thing. So those textures get computed by the appearance service, and so when we talk about baked textures, that's usually what we mean is the textures that are getting generated by that appearance service. So right now those things get computed, but the only place you can see them is on an file system avatar with no meshes. So the idea with bakes on mesh is that you can apply those same textures to. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you totally broke up on me right as you were probably saying the one thing that I really wanted to know. Could you repeat the last one?
So anyway, that wraps it up for now. Yeah. So let's see, what bits was I covering? Okay, so we have the appearance service, which makes baked textures, right? That's what we're usually talking about when we talk about baked textures, internally. And those textures get applied to a system avatar, if you're wearing a system avatar, just an old school non-mesh avatar. So the idea with bakes on mesh is that you can take those same textures and apply them to mesh attachments, right? So you've got a mesh head or a mesh body that is being used in place of the system avatar. So you've got the system avatar set to invisible. You don't want to look at it. You just want to look at this mesh thing. Now you could actually take advantage of your existing mesh, your existing baked texture, and put it on those meshes. And the nice thing about that is it makes it much easier to customize your appearance if you're wearing a mesh avatar or partially mesh avatar, because now you can take advantage of all the compositing that happens in the baking service to do things like applying tattoos onto your mesh avatar, so that sort of thing.
Okay. Is there a link? I'm sorry, I probably asked this last time for more information, because what I'm wondering is, as a creator that has customers, how would I take advantage of this and apply it so that my customers could do it? I'm guessing I would have to release a full permission texture to them, and I don't know how all that works. So if you have more information.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of docs on this now. Once the project gets a little more underway, we will, and obviously once we get to the stage of having a project viewer and so forth, there'll be more information available. But as a content creator, basically what you're going to need to do is flag some parts of your mesh objects as being, bakes on mesh regions, right? So if you can take your model and there's going to, you edit it, and there's going to be some checkbox where, you say, okay, I want the head to use the baked mesh texture, to use the baked head texture, then then that will just sort of follow along as then if people do something that causes their bakes to change, then the texture that gets displayed on that head will update automatically.
Yeah,
so you should have to do less tweaking permissions than you do now. Once you've said, okay, this thing is textured by baked textures, then that's something that the system can change independently without requiring an actual modification to the mesh object.
I got
that. And back in the day, on the default avatars, it was easy to trade these layers and stuff because those layers got put into assets that we trade freely. And we didn't have this problem with appliers and everything. So this is what, kind of baked mesh is bringing.
Yeah, it's supposed to give you less need for appliers and less need for for kind of sort of onion avatars where you've got kind of a lot of layers of duplicated meshes.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make it clear to Jessica that you don't have to give your customers full perm textures. You can just give them like we do with skins for system avatars or for clothing for system avatar clothing, where you just give
I
them
got.
the folder. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know. I didn't know exactly what stage it was at, and it kind of seemed like it was going to be a thing like tomorrow, and I was like, I don't know anything about it. So, okay, I got you. I got
Yeah,
you. We're
yeah.
nowhere
No,
near
sorry,
close.
not
Okay,
for,
thank
for
you.
good or ill. It's not going to be tomorrow. Backing up in the chat a little bit, there was a question about bakes on mesh for Animesh. Yeah, that's a good question. We've talked about, for Animesh, we've talked about having a kind of a second stage project, at some point where we would add things like being able to do bakes on Animesh. The idea there would be your Animesh object would have a sort of an inventory. I mean, it has an inventory now, but we would look in that inventory, on the baking service, and we'd say, oh well, okay, you've got this shape and this shirt and all this stuff, and basically would do the same kind of processing on that stuff that it does with your avatar's current outfit today. So then once you did that, you could actually generate a baked texture for an Animesh object, and send that then as an update. So that's something that we would uh, you know we would like to do as a follow-on project. It's not part of the Animesh project that we're working on right now. The goal for the original Animesh project is um, to get sort of the basic ability to do animated objects working first, and then once that's working and once Bakes on Mesh is implemented, then when we get the time to work on it some more, to do a kind of a second stage Animesh that gives you this ability to do baking, and gives you the ability to do taking advantage of shapes, gives you the ability to kind of get the effect of being able to you do more customization, right? It's more like the kinds of things you can do with sliders today. Um, so the that's so that's kind of Animesh too. When we get a chance to work on that.
I think you said they're not persistent. As soon as you change your clothes, the bakes get lost.
That's right. The baking service textures are temporary. They're basically you can assume they exist for the duration of when that's your current outfit. But when you change it, then a new one gets generated with a new UUID, and the old textures aren't necessarily going to stick around. When you go to a new region, well, the yeah the big textures come from the baking service, which it's not on the simulator. It's a separate set of hosts out there. So it doesn't really matter what region you're in. You always have the same access to those textures. Or when you go to a new region, no, it shouldn't trigger any kind of a rebake when you go to a new region. Um, it it's I mean for avatars today, it's basically a property of your avatar, right? You say you know, hey, what's the bake for this? You know, what are the bakes for this agent? And then the service can say, okay, these are the current textures I have. So you go to a new region, you know, new appearance messages get generated and sent out to the observers, but they're appearance messages that are notifying them about the bakes that have already happened. The baking itself doesn't have to be done again.
Question, Beer.
Yeah.
You said that you know, when you change your outfit and you update your appearance editor, you know, you change an outfit or whatever, the big textures get a new UUID. What happens to the old UUID? If you had access to that old UUID, is that old big texture stored someplace? UUID just completely wiped out at that point.
I'm not sure how long that will stick around, but it's not permanent. You know, these things are cached on, you know, machines that are getting their data from the bake service, and at some point that information is going to get cleared, and the old textures are going to go away.
Because I was thinking if there was a way to keep the old UUID, if say you had three different Animesh, right? Three different Animesh characters, and if you would, you know, your regular avatar, system avatar, you wear the different outfits for each Animesh character, and then if you can get that UUID and apply it to the Animesh character, then you change your outfit and you apply the new UUID to another character. That if you can keep the old UUIDs around, you could then texture each Animesh character with different textures, and then they would hold those textures, those UUIDs for that particular Animesh character. The thing I could see being danger is those UUIDs have to be kept secret, so that only the Animesh itself knows what the UUID is. But that's something that can be developed later. But I was thinking that's one way we could have Animesh characters, if they're using the baked services, that you could have multiple different Animesh characters with different UUIDs associated with them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if you had multiple Animesh objects, and you know, if we had this ability to do baking of Animesh objects, then you know that information would be stored per you know, per Animesh object, not per owner or per agent, right? So yeah, you could potentially have, you know, 6 different dogs that are wearing you know, different combinations of, you know, collars and sweaters and stuff, and um, that's all getting, you know, computed using the baking service, and you know, those kind of would each have their own baked texture that would persist until they you know, said they wanted to change their own appearance. Yeah, well, if they're wearing rigged mesh sweaters, then of course you don't need the bakes on mesh you know, service at all. But I'm saying if you did have if you were using bakes, you know, just to you know, basically just to apply the sweater as a texture, you know, the way that you can wear a shirt or something, you know, with a system avatar, then you could do that.
I know I'm probably asking for the impossible, uh, but it, I mean, we're kind of at the stages where we're kind of trying to make decisions on what, you know, we leave in, you know, on the avatar all the time, and which we can link to or do something else with later. So it'd be nice to get some kind of numbers to look at.
Uh, you mean in the context of the complexity limits?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, as I mentioned at the beginning, that's something that we're working on doing the you know, data collection for now. So I will you know, keep you posted as we learn more. But yeah, one thing we will be doing is setting up a separate test region with increased limits. So if people want to play around with things that they can't do today, that would be a chance to do that. I'm sure that would be a good place for a dragon wildlife refuge for Lucia, and we'll probably be using it for our own testing as well. When will we be done with the testing, or when will we have test regions set up? The test regions should be pretty soon. I don't know if it'll be. I don't know if I'll have it by tomorrow, but shouldn't be more than a couple days. I already have the tools to do this, working with some internal test regions. We just need to get the simulator updates deployed and the region itself created. Yeah, soon. Should be the next day or two.
Veer, did you get a chance to look into the drop thing at all?
I mean, we did look into the drop thing, and basically it's kind of a hairball. I don't think that we're going to be able to get that working for for the initial Animesh release. I know it'd be a good thing to have, but basically it would require adding capabilities that we currently don't have on the simulator for handling certain types of transition of object state.
Well, it's good to know. At least you guys looked into it.
There's a question: could you make it just detached, then have the viewer res it from inventory? That would be kind of interesting, I guess, if you just implemented it using kind of more complicated viewer behavior rather than trying to change anything on the back end. Carrie, I hope we'll get a chance to work on it at some point, but I don't have a definite time frame on that. All right. Did I miss anybody's question? Oh, there's a question about elegant end and elegant object details constants that scripts can query for stry counts max in the region. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing those LSL functions. As I say, we're in the process of trying to get the final limits. Once we have limits, it's not going to be a variable that you need to track. It's just going to be a global thing that all simulators do. So having variation in the allowed complexity is just kind of a transitional state while we're doing testing.
Oh, did we talk about mirrors yet?
Oh yeah, you missed it. We're going to change everything to use ray tracing so it can support as many reflections as you want. It's just going to be a giant world of mirrored balls everywhere.
Just for the YouTube viewing audience, that was a joke.
Yeah, sorry. Now, this is kind of a perennial topic where people ask for reflections, and then we notice that it slows down performance by a factor of 2 every time you add another reflection, and then we decide maybe we don't want a lot of reflections on further reflection. All right. Well, any other questions? I think if we've gotten to mirrors, we may be about done. Time estimate on Animesh release? No. I mean, we're doing our best to, get it down to the kind of minimal feature set and work through the remaining issues. The list of issues has been on average going down, although people do keep filing more bug reports and requests and things, which has the effect that it's more stuff to work on.
Yeah, stop filing bug
yeah.
reports.
Sorry, say that again.
I said we need to stop filing bug reports.
Yeah, that's right. If I didn't have any bug reports or feature requests, it would be a faster process. Is it a feature request, Lucia? Okay, shoot. Okay, so firstly, I don't feel like I understand exactly how this would work. It would be best to actually file a Jira for it. Secondly, it's not likely to be taking on something like that at this stage, but I'm willing to have the discussion if I have a kind of a concrete proposal.
So, like if you had an Animesh hamster and the hamster goes and sits on a wheel and the wheel is animated to turn, then the wheel then animates the hamster, kinda?
Or like the
I don't,
cat
I'm trying to
cushion that
understand.
tells the cat how to sit on it, or something like that.
I mean, I think I get what she's going after, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think what she's saying is the animation doesn't need to be in the Animesh. It's told by another object.
So there has to be some permission thing where some objects are allowed to tell the Animesh objects what to do, and if they're allowed to tell them what to do, then they can give them a name or UUID for an animation that they're supposed to play. Okay, yeah, please file that. As I say, it's not very likely we'd be tackling something like that at this stage of the game. We are trying to get, Animesh released. Hopefully in the not extremely distant future, but it's a good discussion to have, and you can certainly see how there'd be some utility to it. Well, the intent is to do a second pass Animesh project, and I am collecting JIRAs that don't fit into the current project as to be considered when we get to that stage.
How would you fake it, Joey?
The the furniture could pass the animation over to it.
Well, all I got to say is the good thing we're making all the animation.
You would just have to, wouldn't just work with any arbitrary furniture. You'd have to make the furniture yourself, or have some kind of script that you give out to furniture people.
Isn't that basically how we do it when the avatars sit on like a chair or something? We allow permissions for an object to animate us. Isn't that basically the same thing?
Yeah, I mean there is a notion of permissions for animations with avatars, but there isn't really anything comparable to that for Animesh objects.
Yeah, scripts can't really grant permission.
Yeah, I mean I think the idea, part of the benefit here for what Lucia is talking about is that it's easier to add new content over time, right? If you've got a new animation that didn't exist when you first designed the cat, but you still want to be able to allow that animation to be played under some circumstances, then it could kind of come bundled with with the cat cushion or the
Well,
hamster ball or whatever.
you just allow inventory drop if you're making the thing, but it doesn't work with third parties.
Yeah, that's going to be needed. I can see where Lucy is right. Um, yeah, that's going to be a thing. People are going to want that. I agree.
You can just provide dev kits.
Oh my God, don't even talk to me about dev kits. I have a whole Facebook rant about that.
Hey, you just need skeleton.
Which you would want to do anyways. Anytime I make any kind of clothing or anything for the mesh bodies, I have at least a demo of that mesh body to test um, it out on to make sure that it fits, it looks good, the rigging's right, etc. Animations, etc. Yeah.
Okay, no, it's a good point, and it is extremely likely it won't be in the initial Animesh release, but I'm happy to take a look at a Jira if we have one. All right. Well, maybe that'll cover us for this week. Let's see. I think I haven't actually updated the wiki recently. I think we've got meetings, on a regular schedule through the rest of the month. We don't have any days that they're canceled that I know of, but I still need to put that online at some point.
Thanks, Veer.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Veer.
They're cutting you off, Lucy. Lucy.